So today we get to wrap up this new series that we called, I say it's not new now for wrapping it up, right? This is the fourth week in the series, Resolution. We started off the series talking about the choices that we make to make things better in our lives. Some of us have made choices to lose weight, for instance, and I talked about that not being my choice, that my insurance company mailed me a scale and told me that it would save them money if I lost 22 pounds. And just so you know, I did not stay on my diet. I had a couple of people ask me already, so did you gain any weight? And that's none of your stinking business. But I did. I've lost 14 pounds on this diet my insurance put me on, and I gained 4 of it back when I was traveling. And that's because everywhere I go, everywhere we went, they ate tons of fatty meat. Like there wasn't like, there's no, you don't walk into an Irish pub and ask for a veggie platter. Right? I mean, that's how you get thrown out on your butt. That it's meat, and then in Germany, it was everything was schnitzeled, and I ate it. It had a Jaeger schnitzel. I didn't know if I'd be sober after it, but Jaeger schnitzel is just it's pork that's schnitzeled, and schnitzel is just a fancy word for deep fried. That's all it is. So Jaeger schnitzel, Jägermeister, right? That's the drink. That just means master hunter. Jaeger means hunter. So this was. Anyway, I learned some new things, but I ate like a stinking pig. And since I knew I was blowing my diet anyway, every time dessert was set in front of me, I lost my flipping mind. I ate it. I did gain some weight. So not that it's, why am I telling you guys this? It's none of your business. You didn't tell me if you quit smoking, so I don't know if I should have to tell you how much I weigh. Right? So we make decisions like I'm going to start reading a book a month, or I'm going to spend less time on the internet. I'm going to stop watching as much TV. I'm going to watch more TV. I'm going to waste more time. I mean, I don't know what your resolutions are, but we generally make resolutions to improve ourselves each year. So we opened up this series by considering whether or not there was a better question we could be asking. And I asked, what if, instead of asking what we could do to make a better version of us, what if we started by asking what breaks my heart and started proactively trying to fix that, right? That was how we started off this series. What breaks your heart? That's what I asked you to think about. I asked you to write it down on a piece of paper. What's broken in the world, and why do you think God put that in your heart? Why is your heart broken over this? The possibility exists that maybe your heart is broken over this because you're supposed to do something about it. And I know anybody could, but as long as anybody could, nobody does, right? Somebody at some point has to take personal responsibility for getting involved in this. And so that's how we started off. In the second week in the series, I introduced the idea that if you really are going to leverage your life for the glory of God and the good of others, if you are really going to make your life awesome, it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you something other people won't pay. The reason why the reason why they call it average is because this is what most people choose. And if you want an above average life, you're going to have to start making above average choices. But you're going to have to pay an above average cost. I mean, it's difficult to make these choices. That's why it's above average. Most people don't want to give up half of their vacation weeks every year to go make a difference in Africa. Most people don't want to live below their means so that they've got more financial margin to give it away to people that are never going to say thank you. You know what I'm saying? And that's why if you're going to make a difference in the world, it's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you your disposable time. It'll cost you possibly even some of your connections. Maybe, but probably not. Maybe even some relationships. Then Pastor Ken last week said that you can't sit around and wait passively for this to happen. You're going to have to take initiative. Talked about the Good Samaritan and how the Good Samaritan took initiative. He didn't wait for somebody else to fix it. He took it on himself to just get the ball rolling. So that's what Pastor Ken talked about last week. So the big idea in this series is that if you want to be a better person, you've got to make the world a better place. So what broke the Samaritan's heart? What was it? What was it? You can say it out loud. What broke the Samaritan's heart if you were here last week? It was the dude in the ditch, right? It was that dude laying down. Isn't that what it was? The brokenness of that other person. That's what broke his heart. We started off the series talking about Nehemiah, and we're going to wrap it up talking about Nehemiah also. But do you remember Nehemiah was the head cupbearer, the kind of like the chief of staff for Artaxerxes in Persia? And when he got some information, it broke his heart. Do you remember what broke his heart? It was the condition of what city? Of Jerusalem back home. And the condition of his brother and all of his relatives who had moved back there. It broke his heart. We know that. And so he did something about it. So here's my question. What breaks your heart? What is it? My hope in this last teaching in this series, Resolution, is that this is more than just another sermon to listen to. I mean, how many sermons do we need of somebody just getting up for 30, 35 minutes telling us stuff that makes absolutely zero difference in the way that we live our lives, only to go out and not make any adjustments at all? I mean, what good does that do anybody? What good does that do you? I mean, the goal surely can't be to puff you up or to puff me up or just to feel good about ourselves, to go out and live completely unchanged, because then the world stays just as crappy as it was before. What is it? What breaks your heart? Is it the fact that in 2011, 750,000 babies were killed before they had a chance to breathe air? And by the way, the stats aren't required. They give those numbers to the CDC on a volunteer basis. So who knows how many there were? And by the way, 2011 is the last time that those numbers were available. You think the numbers have gone up or down? You know, there's only one clinic in Boston for a girl who wants to keep her baby, who doesn't have family to back her up. Oh, there's how many that'll help her get rid of the baby. But you know how many years that'll help her keep it? One. So maybe that's your passion. Maybe you already knew that. Maybe you already know about the Boston Center for Pregnancy Choices. It's only 30 minutes away from here. Or when I mentioned fostering, maybe that's what hit a nerve in your heart. Maybe that's what breaks your heart. What is it? Maybe it's something that we brought up a few years ago. You might remember that in the Hope Project 3 years ago. We partnered with Love 146. And the way that Love 146 got started is there was a lead singer from a Christian band who got an invitation from a friend who was doing undercover with the FBI or CIA or something. I have no idea what. But they went into an auction for children for sex trafficking. And they were building a case against the people who were there, so they weren't allowed to stop it. And he watched this little girl who was just a child, I think of about 8 years old, who walked up on the stage in a dark room. And she didn't have a name, of course. It was just a number written on a piece of paper that was just safety pinned to her shirt. And her number was 146. And he asked the guy if they were going to do anything to rescue that girl, and he said no. We can't do anything. And he watched her be sold to the highest bidder. And he never got that number out of his head. So he quit the band and started an organization in her honor called Love 146. .org. Look it up. Maybe that's what breaks your heart. What is it? Maybe when I brought up the thing about the moms, the siblings, the family of all the, hundreds of people in 2015 that died of heroin overdoses in the Boston area? Man, it's a freaking epidemic. Maybe that's what it is. And so you've, like Pastor Ken said last week, you've taken initiative. You get it. You already know what breaks your heart. And so this past week, you've been Googling everything you can find on it. You're doing some research. You're finding out what organizations are out there already so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a guy in Connecticut who found out about the human trafficking deal and Googled it and found Love 146. So the guy we got in contact with actually isn't even like wasn't a pastor or anything like that. He was just a Christian man who went to a great church in Connecticut, who Googled an organization that helps with this, and rather than inventing his own, he just said, do you have anybody to coordinate people in New England to fund the rescue of these girls? And they said no. And he said, well, I'll volunteer to do that. And so he went through the interview. And now that dude who, whatever corporate job he had, now works full time for Love 146, just raising awareness of human trafficking. And that all happened because some dude in Connecticut took initiative to start fixing what God had broken his heart over. So maybe you know exactly what breaks your heart and you've already taken initiative. I want to wrap up by talking to those who aren't sure yet. I mean, you recognize the brokenness of all of those examples I just brought up. And you said, I just don't know where to start. Like, yes, you brought up 4 things, Sean, and all 4 of those things could break my heart. But you're telling it, I don't want, do I spread it out over 4? There's not one of those that jumps to the front of the line and says, give your life to fixing this. So if that's you, and I believe that that's a larger percentage because I've been some of the communication cards you guys are asking, prayer, like you want God to begin breaking your heart over something. So if that's you, if you're not the Nehemiah, there's nothing that's like right in the front of the line. And when I say what breaks your heart, there's not one consuming passion. Today's teaching is for you. If you've got your Bible, I want you to go to Nehemiah chapter 2. This is for the rest of us. Not the Nehemiahs, not the Samaritans. Right? We're not the one leading the charge. We're not the one who's grabbing everybody and pulling them together. We're that person who's waiting to be pulled together, right? We're not exactly sure what it is that our heart is broken over. In Nehemiah chapter, I said chapter 2, but we're actually going to be in Nehemiah chapter 3. Here's the question. What should I do? If there's not one thing that completely consumes my heart, what should I do? If that's the question you're asking, then this is what we're going to be talking about today. In Nehemiah chapter 3, verse 28, here's what it says. Above the horse gate, the priests repaired the wall. Each one repaired this section immediately across from his own house. And there's a couple of things I want to highlight from that one verse. And I don't even know if you caught it. But each one repaired what was where? In front of their own house. Now, who was the one passionate about rebuilding the entire wall? That was Nehemiah. He was the one that was driving this. But the priest, that wasn't their driving motivation. I mean, 14 years earlier, Ezra had gotten what moved them. What moved them was rebuilding the temple. So they had rebuilt the temple. These guys had day jobs. They weren't quitting it to rebuild the wall. That was Nehemiah's gig. Their gig was the temple. And that brings up the second thing. The first observation is that everybody did what was right in front of them. The second observation that I want to make from that passage of Scripture is they didn't let their day job become an excuse not to take care of what was in front of them when they could have. Were these guys busy as anybody else, yes or no? They had careers. They weren't looking for things to fill their schedule. They were full-time priests taking care of the temple. They could have even said, we already put in our time. We were the ones who built the temple. Where were you then, Nehemiah? Oh, that's right. You were eating at the king's feast back in Persia. They could have said that. They didn't. They didn't say, I've already paid my dues. I've already done my time. Their occupation did not influence their involvement. It didn't keep them. They found a way to keep their day job and still get crap done. We call that GCD, right? Yeah, everybody needs a GCD on their team, somebody who's really good at getting crap done. At Grace Church, Pastor Ken is our high-level GCD. Homeboy can get crap done. Here's what I like about Ken. If I said, we need to get on the other side of that wall, Ken, I think, would just start running into it until somebody else gave him that dude he's a GCD, right? So they kept their day job and still found a way to be a GCD, right? To get crap done. Look at verse 29 and 30. Next, Zadok, son of Immer, also rebuilt the wall across from his own house. And a little bit further down the road from him was Shemaliah, son of Shechemiah, the gatekeeper of the east gate. The inference is that he got his crap done. Now, the word crap's not in the Bible, by the way, and I hope I'm not, just GCD is what I'll say, all right? Next, Hananiah, son of Shelemiah, and Hanan, the sixth son of Zalaph, repaired another section, while Meshullam, son of man, these names, I am so glad we don't name our kids these things anymore, right? This is brutal. Berechiah rebuilt the wall across from where he lived. When they didn't know what they were really passionate about, they got to work on what was right in front of them. So let me ask you, what's right in front of you? What area of brokenness do you step around on a weekly basis? What opportunities to make a difference are presenting themselves right now? When I was 13, I was in the 8th grade. And I was a preacher's kid in a old school a Baptist church where they had Sunday morning Sunday school, Sunday morning church, Sunday night choir practice, Sunday night church, Tuesday night visitation, Wednesday night church, Saturday morning bus visitation. And guess who was at all of those things? Like if the doors were open, I was there. I was at church all the time. And then junior church was something that they had. So everybody went to Sunday school, and Sunday school was like small groups, except it was at the church building. And then so all the kids, it was fun. There was like crafts and there's like little quick teachings, and then they'd have us stand up and do games. And then there was junior church, and that was like church for little kids, and then they had big church. Did anybody else grow up with Sunday school and big church? Anybody else have that experience regardless of what kind of church it was? All right, so you know, you feel my pain. So we had 2 hours of it, and then junior church. And then when you hit 7th grade, you couldn't go to junior church anymore. You had to start going to big church. And the preacher was never talking to middle schoolers, right? Some of you guys are in middle school. And my hope is that every single week I never talk in a way that you don't know what I'm talking about. Because I remember what that was like. And I would just sit there like this. And if I fell asleep, I always got in trouble because the preacher was my dad. So I couldn't hide that, right? My mom would be sitting in the choir, and if she looked at me with evil eyes, I knew I was going to get a spanking after church, and then when I got from her, and then I was going to get a spanking from Dad when I got home. So I was just always really, like I didn't color in church, I didn't draw in church, they didn't have Game Boys in church. That would have been awesome they didn't have them back then. But they were redesigning junior church, and the way they were going to do it was through something called Caraway Street. So there was somebody who used to work for Sesame Street, who was a devoted follower of Jesus, who quit working for Sesame Street and felt like everything they had learned working for Sesame Street could be leveraged for the glory of God in local churches. So they built a set in their church's junior church room that had doors that you could walk in and out of, and boxes that opened up like this, and puppets could come out and they came over the fence, and mailboxes that we could come out of, and then he standardized that stage set and then sent the plans that put it together in a package, and churches could order it, and that guy or one of the people he had trained would come out to your church, and they would train your people, and they would teach you how to run Caraway Street for your junior church. It was very interactive, and it had live acting with puppets, and the actors were the puppets too, and so they were looking for volunteers for this, and they needed enough volunteers where nobody had to do it every single weekend. So they need 2 complete full casts, right? And so a cast was 6 people who were 6 puppeteers, and they needed a total of 12 people plus crowd control. So it was a small church of about 150 people, and they needed more volunteers. So at first it was all adults, and they said high schoolers, and I was like, please let junior hires. And when they finally said junior hires can volunteer, I volunteered right away, because I knew that meant I could skip church every other week and not get in trouble, right? So I was Captain Good Guy. Captain Good Guy was this character who would be all smarmy, right? Be super cheesy, but only when other people were around. He was secretly like a very selfish, prideful person, but when other people were around, he would try to pretend like he was a good Christian. And so he would step into a phone booth, and he would change clothes and come out in like a Superman outfit, which is basically purple pantyhose and shiny red shorts. So none of the adults wanted to do that, and so they said, the 8th grade preacher's kids got to do this. So the truth is, every other Sunday my whole life, I went to church wearing pantyhose. Don't hold that against me. And then I was Cosgrove the puppet. And the thing is for me is that I wasn't, as an 8th grader, passionate about helping little kids come to know Jesus. That wasn't what broke my heart. The truth is, there was an opportunity where people needed help, and I wanted to do it, and it wasn't even for the best reasons. But I volunteered to fix the wall that was right in front of my house. I did that in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. And the summer before 10th grade is when I actually started caring about what I was doing. My heart wasn't broken over kids knowing and following Jesus, but because I just got involved, God broke my heart over what I started getting involved in. And it was that summer before 10th grade where I felt like, I think I want to spend the rest of my life helping kids know and follow Jesus. So I became a youth pastor. Becoming a youth pastor, I wanted to be a better youth pastor. And so I went and got a graduate degree in education because I wanted a degree in education so I could take biblical stuff and get really good at breaking that down and teaching that to other people so that they would remember it and apply it to their life. That brought me to Boston, where I could teach in a college other people how to do that. When we bought a house in Stoughton, and my neighbors asked us to start a Bible study. And what I had no idea of as a 13-year-old became the very thing by which the rest of my entire life would change. You have no idea how many people's lives are going to be changed because you as a middle schooler start helping out. Because you as a high schooler stop using your age as a reason not to make a difference. Because you as a college student, and yes, I know you're working a full-time job while paying your way through school, but you found some way to get involved and you have no idea how your choice to live with your eyes off of yourself, you making a choice to leverage your life for the glory of God and the good of others, is going to be the hinge on which the entire door of your life swings open. If you don't know where to get involved, I'm asking you to get involved here. Help us. I believe what Grace Church is doing in the lives of others is as valuable as any project Grace Church has ever sponsored. I want to ask a rhetorical question, meaning that I do not want you to raise your hand. But how many of you guys do not answer this question? Your marriages are better since showing up here. How many of you used to feel like God hated you because of the mistakes in your past? Until you started showing up and found out that none of that made him stop loving you. How many of you guys felt distant from God until God began drawing you closer to him through this church family? How many of you guys spent your resources selfishly until you had an opportunity to help us build a feeding center in Guatemala? 2 feeding centers and 3 churches in Mongolia. 2 orphanages and a church in Burma. An orphanage in Ukraine. The school and the church and the dorms in Sierra Leone, Africa. We're making things happen. And 30% of the regular attenders are carrying the load. What could we do if everybody here gave? What could we do if everybody here got involved? What if everybody? Can you imagine if we showed up this morning and there were so many people who'd signed up for the parking lot team that somebody had iced all the white stripes in the parking lot so that you wouldn't be as parked as ridiculously as you guys are all parked out there? Yeah, I drove in this morning and saw, I can see, I know where those lines are, and I didn't want to park by everybody because I knew I'd be parking directly over a line, and that aggravated the tar out of me. I'm just like, I'm not even going to deal with it. I'm parking across the street. Can you imagine if we had so many people? We have a lady that works in a kids class on Saturday nights, and because there's not enough people on Saturday nights to serve in the kids ministry, she's only able to attend a service once a month. No, we're not begging for anybody to help. If you don't want to work with kids, don't work with kids, please. We don't want you working with kids. And if you wouldn't pass a background check, then don't even apply for that area. But we do have people at Grace Church who can't pass a background check who are helping in the parking lot or greeters or other parts of our church ministry. So we do have room for everybody. Everybody. Broken people are being put back together again. Those far from God are finding their way back, and people are finding community. They're discovering how the brokenness of their past is becoming the box on which they stand on to point other people to Jesus in their future. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, the Bible says this. Jesus said this, "You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden." He just got done telling the Beatitudes, where he describes what it looks like to be in a relationship with God through faith in him. So he's talking to us as a group of people, and when he says you, he's talking to them collectively. You together are the light of the world. That's the church. And if we are the light of the world, if we collectively are the ones that God has called to make a difference in a dark place, to be an example of what it looks like to live in a relationship with each other and to live in relationship with God. If the church is the light for the whole world, then bro, if you're a follower of Jesus, I'm thinking you need to be a part of that. Is that rational? I don't even think that's a stretch. If the church is the light of the world, then I think that it's God's plan that if you're a follower of Jesus, to help make that light brighter. And I'm not talking about just sitting each week. I'm not talking about showing up. But this is right in front of you. And there are opportunities right here in this church family for you to make a difference. I'm not asking you to cover somebody else's responsibility. I'm not asking you to fix the wall in front of somebody else's house. I'm asking you to fix the wall that's right in front of you. When Moses asked God how he could possibly be used by God to make a difference in the world, what did God say to him? God asked him a question. He said, "What is in your what? Hand." What have you got right here? It's just a stick. Use it. If you just take the opportunity that is right in front of you, that would not take any stretch for you to begin. Listen, I don't even care how much time you have. If you just showed up 15 minutes early, you could have helped people find the right parking spots. If you just showed up 10 minutes early, you could have grabbed connection cards and said hi to people when they walked in. Maybe you don't want to talk to people at all. You don't want to be seen at all. You prefer a background thing, right? And let's say you're technically minded, or you're a computer geek. You can help us with the video editing. You could be in the sound booth, the audio tech. Maybe you like mixing your own beats. We got room for you. You could be the cafe people. They are the non-famous ones. They're the ones who are here before people and stay longer than people cleaning up. You could work if you just had an hour on a Friday. You could give Nico a break and come in and vacuum the kids' lobby area so that he doesn't have to every Friday. We got room for everybody. So what have you got? How much time do you have? Even if all you have is just showing up for the hour that you're here, there's a way that you can help. 1 Corinthians 12 and Romans chapter 12 compares this body, this church, every church, to a human body. How much of your human body do you want working when you wake up tomorrow morning? What percentage? Dude, listen, my pinky doesn't do much, but if I woke up tomorrow and my pinky was gone, homeboy would freak out. Am I right? You can do without your appendix, but I still didn't want them to take it out because it's doing something. I don't know what it's doing, But it's doing something. Even my tonsils, if you don't need to take them out, leave those jokers in. They're doing something. I want 100% of my body doing something. And different parts of my body got different levels of responsibility, and I'm okay with that. My pinky don't need to do the thinking. My brain's got that one covered. But my pinky better... I want to tell you what my pinky does. I'm sorry. There's just some jobs that only a pinky can do. I'm just saying. But what it can do, it best do. Right? My thumb ain't going to get this job done. Right? Okay, I'm just being ridiculous. What if every person in this room were to make this declaration? I'm going to make the rest of my life the best of my life. I'm not going to let the past be an excuse to not do anything in the present, because then I'll waste my future. Right? What if this was just more than another sermon? Here's what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you in closing to take out your communication card. Would you do that? Take out your communication card, please. On the front side of it, put your name and your email address at least. If you're a first timer, listen, you don't feel obligated at all. I'm not trying to, and I'm not making anybody do this anyway. But if you're tracking with me today in the teaching, then I'm asking you to take out your communication card, give me your name, your email address, and if you already know what breaks your heart, would you write that on the back side of your communication card? I would love to find out that 20 of us care about fostering. If we could get 20 households here at Grace to care about fostering, if we can get 10 families at Grace to care about fostering, how cool would it be to bring all of us together on one night, bring somebody where there are experts at how to go through the foster process, and we had them come in on a random night when we were all available so we can all get trained on that. Wouldn't that be great? What if there are 6 of you that care about helping families or children of parents who've died of a drug overdose? What if you didn't have to get this going from scratch all by yourself? Wouldn't you want to know that there were 3 or 4 other people who cared about this too? So maybe we could just send out an email and say, hey, listen, we know that the 4 of you guys were interested in something like this. We found 2 or 3 resources that you guys could connect on your own. And Grace Church isn't driving it. We're not forcing you 3 or 4 people to get together. We're just sending out the information. You can see that there's 3 other emails attached to it. So if you guys want to on your own get together, you can. Or not. It'd be up to you. I think that'd be great. Tell us what you're passionate about. And if we've got resources to offer, that's why I'm asking you for this information. Or maybe there's not one driving thing that's breaking your heart, and I'm asking you to help us make a difference in the lives of those who live here, locally, and leverage your lives for the good that we're doing in the rest of the world too. So maybe there's one area that you're more interested in. Say, I wouldn't mind helping, but I want to be something behind the scenes. You mentioned somebody who can vacuum once a month on a Friday. I can show up 2 hours on a Friday afternoon. Once a month, I can do that. Or maybe you'll say, hey, listen, I can't give you any extra time, but when I'm here, I can stand by the front door, open it for people when they walk in and say, thanks for coming. I can do that. So if you know what breaks your heart, write it down, let us know. Had a lady last night emailed me this morning it was a message through Facebook. And her comment to me was this. She said, I know what it is, and it's to help families of those who died of heroin overdoses. And she goes, and when I went home, somebody tagged me in a thing over in Quincy about families, moms whose husbands have had overdoses, and how that they might have childcare available. I emailed them this morning to tell them that I will babysit their kids anytime they want to get together. That's all it takes to change the world. You just doing something. Or don't. Let this be another stupid sermon that did nothing but fill 1 hour of your Sunday morning. You really can make a difference. But not by making the same choices everybody else makes. You got to do better. You can do. We just need to rearrange some stuff. But we can do that too. Let's pray. God, break our heart for what breaks yours. And that's the brokenness in the lives of everybody that we see all the time. It's the brokenness we see It's the brokenness in lives that people will never see. God, for those of us who are moved to do something, and we know what it is, help us, like Pastor Kim said last week, to take initiative and just start somewhere. Google it if nothing else. God, give us the courage to kind of step out from the crowd a little bit and to put it on paper, what we care about. God, help us to find resources as a church family that would help them get better at what you've put in their heart to do. For those who aren't driven by any particular need outside of this church family, but those who appreciate what you're doing in their life through this church family, God, maybe they just need to help us start making a difference in the lives of other people here. That's good too. Or maybe, God, right now, they personally aren't in a healthy place to help others. And so this isn't time. They need to heal first. And that's, God, this isn't about manipulating anybody. Our goal is that every person shows up, finds one baby step they can take in their relationship with you, and that they actually take it. If you know what your baby step is, would you tell that to God right now? God, here's my baby step, and I'll take it. Let your will be done in our lives so that your will can be done through our lives. And we ask this in your great name, Jesus, and say together, amen.